start.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Soil. The topic I reported today is marine dissolved organic matter. Can its carbon nitrogen ratio explain carbon overconsumption? So first, let us understand some difficult words. This will help later. DOM. DOM is an abbreviation for dissolved organic matter, like marine life excrement. And DOC means dissolved organic carbon. DOC means particle organic carbon. DON means dissolved organic nitrogen. And PON means particle organic nitrogen. And if they are all changed into I, it means inorganic. Red field, which means the consistent atomic ratio of carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus. The ratio is 106 and 16 and 1 found in marine phytoplankton. But in this paper, we just know the ratio of carbon and nitrogen is about 6.6 in red field. Now let's start the part of the introduction. Red field is very important, which has become a convenient practice to calculate new production in the overconsumption. For example, if we have 1 unit nitrate consumption, we only need to multiply by 6.6 to calculate the carbon consumption. But however, in a number of cases, the simple red field is different from observations. It's very strange, especially for short periods and at specific localities. So, according to their observations, the uptake ratio of total CO2 and nitrogen in the surface ocean markedly exceeds the red field ratio, more than 6.6. So more carbon is consumed. Their examples include coastal and shelf seas and the open ocean, especially during phytoplankton blooming, like this. So it's very surprising. And so the scientists think the formation of dissolved organic matter of a high carbon, nitrogen ratio are most important. So this low nitrogen DOM has been discussed as a possible cause of carbon overconsumption. And to resolve this issue, the knowledge of carbon nitrogen ratio in oceanic DOM is needed. Next is the materials and methods. First is the part of the voyage. The place is in the open North Atlantic. During 33 degree north to 60 degree north, and along the 20 west meridian. And the date is during June 25th to July 14th in 1996. How about sampling? On the surface, we use a continuously operating pump, and on the vertical profiles, we use the CTD. This is very common equipment on the research ship. And the number of samples is 100. They will be oxidized by high temperature. Then we will get CO2 and NO. Pay attention, must NO rather than other gases, like NO2 or NGO maybe, because the machine we use can only detect NO rather than NO2 or other gases. The NO gas will have a combination with ozone. And finally, we will do a quantitative analysis. And there are many details in the middle about chemistry. Next results. We found a culminating spring bloom at about 51 degree north with maximum chlorophyll A and POC concentrations. Like in this place, 51 degree north, and this point has a DOC concentration. But note that there was no DOC maximum associated with the spring bloom at 51 degree north. Also the same place, and but in this point was not the maximum, but this place. But we can find this has a trend from the south to north. The DOC was decreased. And in a broad sense, the north to south spatial distribution represents a temporary development from spring to summer. And you can see nitrate content is reduced from spring to summer because of the temperature. And we should separate younger DOM from the older. The red part is the younger DOM, over 200 meters, and the other part is the older. And the younger DOM is what we need. We will do a research on this part. And so we observe DOM and DOC over 200 meters. Please pay attention to the DOC. We can find that the first 4 pictures on the surface water, their DOC is more than 60 units, but the other 2 pictures, the other 2 pictures on the surface water, their DOC is less than 60 units. And to eliminate the efforts of nitrate, we use the red part to calculate. You can see the first picture, the red part, its nitrate is about 0. So, and you can see the latitude is less than 50 degree north. So in the other picture, we chose the first 4 pictures because their latitude is also less than 50 degrees. We chose this way to eliminate the efforts of nitrate. And this approach yields a carbon nitrogen ratio of the freshly formed DOM of 23°5. This data is very crazy because in short, DOM of a carbon nitrogen ratio far above the red field ratio had accumulated in surface water. Combine the above results with other paper, we found that in the Northeast Atlantic, the formation of DOM can explain carbon overconsumption during summer, but not spring. Because in the summer system, substantial amounts of this material, extremely poor in nitrogen, tend to accumulate. In short, in summer, low nitrogen DOM accumulated, and which contribute to COR drawdown seasonality. However, its impact on long-term carbon and nitrogen balance of the ocean is very small. Here I draw 2 pictures. So we believe that the depth of the mixed layer in winter is greater than that in summer. You can see the mixed layer in winter is bigger than the mixed layer in summer. So excessively consumed carbon in summer will be supplemented by carbon dioxide or other forms due to the increase in mixed layer in winter. So thank you for your attention.
9 minutes, 23.
Alan. Echo. Rooney. Zhi Alan.
Can you explain why using the why using the reference tool as the example or anything to prove this opinion?
Because the review 6.6 is
Why 6.6?
They found this data from the phytoplankton. This they found the atomic creature in the phytoplankton. So there is no why many scientists think it is achieved.
Okay, Echo.
Yes. You display all.
Rooney.
How to differ older and new DOM in edge the 200
because deep water concentrates are uniform, and which turns over extremely slowly at time scales of ocean mixing. And we don't know why this part of the material is so slowed down so far. So we chose this part, not the other parts.
Okay. You didn't really address the question. That will go on. Zhi
You measure the VOC and VOM from the nitrogen oxide and carbon dioxide. Is it correct? Because I forget. Can you turn to the page previous?
This
material and method. Next. 9.
Yes, this one. Get CO2 and NO. Can you repeat this part? Because you say we must pay attention about it, but I can't get it.
I say pay attention is that we should pay attention. We must get NO gas, but not the other gas. Because if we do oxide high temperature, we will maybe get other gases. But in our research, we detect the NO research. This machine can only detect NO gas, so we can't get other gases. So we'll have efforts on our research.
So how about CO2?
CO2. So maybe I think if we do the last step, we will get CO2.
Thank you.
Echo.
Because you mentioned about the season, and this research is during in summertime because it's from June to July. So how you can comparison with the season of fruit results?
Because I think because the date is during July 14th and June 25th to July 14th, and latitude is between 33 degrees in north and 60 degrees north. So I think if the writer thinks this place is in the summer, but this place, yeah.
Okay, volunteer question. 1, 2, 3. What's your name?
Rich.
Rich. Okay.
And so, what do you want to tell us a DOC lower than 60 units in any different figure? And you say pay attention to the DOC.
What's your question again?
So, why is important at 60 units? Lower or
60 units.
yes? And what could be yes? Yes. Why is important at 60 units?
Because it's very, you can see the first 4 pictures there, DOC is bigger than 60, but the other 2 pictures are less than 60, and it's so the 4 picture there, DOC is larger than the other 2 pictures.
Okay, I get this point. No, Isaac.
You said there are many details in the middle picture. And what are these details?
Including some simple preservation and experiments, crossing, and
Is that your question? Experimental detail? I have to stop here. So you check the paper, okay? And what's your name? Roy. Okay. Roy, what's your question? Nitro effect. Nitro effect.
natural effects.
Yeah, you talk about nitro effect, you eliminate.
This because the part of nature is not the scope of our research, which will enter to the experimental results.
Okay. Let's stop here. I think the introduction part is clear, but can be improved. So here, although I assume marine chemistry is a mandatory lecture for all of you, right? Introduction to Marine Chemistry by Wolfgang. Okay. But if I were you, I will use a different way to introduce these important concepts. I will use some pictures to explain the solid and particle. So this will give people stronger impression, the strong difference between these different pools of carbon and nitrogen pool. And there's a term that you repeatedly said, but it's quite confusing, so I had to say that. You say it's a how do you pronounce this?
Really? I thought you pronounced. I always heard Rachel. I want to pronounce that girl. Okay, so it's Rachel. Okay. And I think the introduction about this deviation from the refill ratio is clear. But do you have a clear research goal slide where it can be just one single sentence, like you tell the audience very clearly what the authors wanted to achieve in this study. Just one sentence. In this study, we want to study what? Okay. So this will make things clearer. And then, Echo asks about the season issue, and this has repeatedly been raised up in your slides. At some point, you talk about spring and summer, and so on. So I would say if this is an issue, you should emphasize that. Actually, when did they start from here to here or the other way around? Okay, so because I don't think that July 14th would be a Arctic spring. If you say June 25th, maybe. But July 14th, I would say it's already Arctic summer. So my guess is from the north to the south, my guess. I don't know. But anyway, if this is an issue and this is something that has been discussed in the paper, then you say that. Okay, this has been considered spring here and summer to the north south. So say that clearly. And okay, so here you already say something like NO, NO2, N2O. Okay, so this is unnecessary detail. You don't even need to say that. Okay, this is analytical detail. And actually, if I were you, I would say, rather say, here, DOC is converted to CO2. You say that clearly. And DON is converted to NO. So you are actually not measuring CO2 and NO. You are measuring CO2 that comes from DOC, and NO that comes from DON. Otherwise, there might be some confusion, like you are measuring these two gases. And then when you were presenting, I think this will make you easily make up 10 minutes. Because when you were presenting your results, you often skip the introduction of the axis, and also like what's this and what's that. So, and see, you have so many figures and you didn't introduce them. So next time when you do that, you can make 10 minutes easily. And okay, so here also some of the audience asked, what's younger, what's older? And I assume that based on the fact that you are in Professor Hong's lab, you should be able to address this issue easily. Like this is actually based on, it's a common knowledge. It's based on some radiocarbon dating, not in this study, but everybody knows that in the upper ocean, DON is younger because the radiocarbon dating age is younger. And here it's older because the dating results shows it's older. So this is based on radiocarbon dating. Okay, you can address that easily. And okay, then in the discussion, okay. Actually, when I was reading or browsing through the paper you chose, I get a bit confused because here it says carbon overconsumption.
Here you are actually talking about DIC overconsumption, right? Not DOC overconsumption. Which one are you talking about? IC or OC? Right, so when you are, this is very unclear because there are so many different types of carbon. Which type of carbon you are talking about? I know this may be the sentence in the paper, but that's something I will criticize. So next time when you talk, because it's more often that we talk about organic carbon consumption, right? And when we say DIC, we always say DIC uptake. But here they are actually talking about DIC consumption. It's actually DIC uptake. So next time you have to say clearly what kind of carbon we are talking about. Okay, so considering that this is actually a chemistry presentation, I think he has done a good job. So let's thank Sol. We'll come back 10 after 11.